Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. It's great to have you with us on this Monday afternoon. While we're in a recess in the case in Dane County, Wisconsin, we want to switch gears to Kenosha County, Wisconsin. You remember in the fall, our cameras were there for the trial of defendant Kyle Rittenhouse. We want to focus now on someone who was a key witness in the Rittenhouse case, the man who was accused by prosecutors of providing the gun that Rittenhouse used to fatally shoot two men and injured a third during those protests in Kenosha, appeared in court today for a plea agreement that was accepted by the court. This is him. This is Dominick Black. He was initially charged with 2 felony counts of delivering a dangerous weapon to a minor that resulted in death. Rittenhouse was 17 years old, unable to buy that gun on his own. And this guy was what is called in the law a straw purchaser. When you go, you buy a gun, you say it's for you, but actually you're buying it for somebody else. That is against the law. He testified as a state's witness during the case, so he cooperated with prosecutors. Even though they were prosecuting him as well, he gave this testimony before the conclusion of his case. And he said that during the trial that the gun strap would have made it difficult for someone to pry it away, which sort of undermined the defense's theory that Rittenhouse feared losing control of his weapon. He also testified that he hoped that taking the stand would lead to some leniency in his own case, of course. Well, his attorneys struck up a plea agreement with the lead prosecutor on this case, Thomas Binger, who we know was largely responsible for trying this case for the state. And wait till you hear this deal. So this happened today. So the prosecutor withdrew those 2 felony charges, replaced it with what is a non-criminal citation for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Okay, something that is non-criminal, you might think of it like, you could liken it to a traffic citation, something so low it's not even rising to the level of a misdemeanor. It's like a summary offense. So it was reduced to that, where he would plead no contest to that charge of contributing, or not, it's not even a charge, it's a citation. Let me be very clear. So that citation of contributing to the delinquency of a child, pay a $200 fine, and otherwise the rest of it is dismissed. Those other charges were withdrawn. The judge agreed that portion of the case against him, that criminal case involving these 2 felonies that would both carry a penalty of up to 6 years in prison if convicted, would all go away. So essentially, it's almost like something on the level of a traffic offense was agreed to here for this guy, for this straw purchase of that AR-15. Let me bring in former prosecutor and civil rights attorney Eric Fudali, standing by in New York to react to this agreement. Eric, what do you think, please?
It's frustrating, and it's a real this entire thing is just such a miscarriage of justice. It's such a tragedy, right? Like, just looking at the facts and looking at what's been admitted and is not in question, right? That this Dominick Black bought a firearm for Kyle Rittenhouse, a minor. Kyle Rittenhouse then travels and ultimately kills 2 people, or multiple people, with a gun. That gun that Dominick Black bought for him. And there's not a single criminal conviction here. Right. I mean, it's just such a tragedy that there's just no conviction now. This is basically he's getting a traffic ticket for buying Kyle Rittenhouse the gun, which was used to kill multiple people. It's just it's tragic, as someone, involved in this, someone who's been, watching this, play out, day by day by day, to really see all as this ends, just not a single criminal conviction, multiple dead, shot by a gun, and nothing and nothing to show for it. It's tragic is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And I also think this deal was unnecessary. I agree with everything you said, Eric, and really thinking about this, because it's tricky. We know what he has done here is he was a straw purchaser. That is a state crime. That is a federal crime. That is totally against the law. You can't go buy a gun with someone else's money, say it's for you, give the gun to them. We know what happened with the gun here horrifically. So this is just wrong. But then it's also unnecessary for him to have been this witness, because as we found out during the trial, that gun charge was not properly on there for Kyle Rittenhouse. It's as strange and crazy as it sounds. Legally in the state of Wisconsin, he was allowed to open carry that rifle because the rifle didn't have a shortened barrel that would make it illegal under the law. So as nutty as that sounds, what he was doing wasn't illegal. Those prosecutors should have known that. They didn't need to proceed on those charges. They should have been withdrawn. The judge did everything right by kicking it at that point. It should have been kicked before we got to trial. So when I think about this, why are they giving this guy a deal when they didn't need his testimony? I get it when you need the testimony of someone, but here it's like we've got the video of the gun possession and all that. Who cares with this guy? Let him go to trial on the felony charges. What do you think, Eric, please?
I absolutely agree. And to even go even further than that, this was an easy case to prove. He admitted he bought him the gun. Right. So this wasn't the type of case where the prosecutors were have to get over a lot of, mounds, of difficulty trying to prosecute this guy and try to prove his guilt. It looks like based on the evidence we have, it was going to be an easy trial for the prosecution. I mean, I guess perhaps they're coming from the standpoint, well, they don't want to give the guy who bought the gun, a sentence or some sort of criminal conviction when the guy who used the gun didn't get a criminal conviction. I suppose there's some backwards logic there. But it's very clear that if Dominick Black had not at least bought the gun for Kyle Rittenhouse, perhaps you could make the argument that these other people, would still be alive today, who ultimately Kyle Rittenhouse shot. So it's very confusing, the logic here. Again, this just goes back to really just a real tragedy of justice that happened here. Multiple people, dead and not a single criminal conviction for it.
You're making such great points, Eric, as you always do. I want to go back to the trial. We have a clip of when Dominick Black testified. Let's take a listen to some of what was said. I believe we have that clip.
No, he's 17, right?
Yeah.
You already got the rifle?
Yeah, it's mine. You got it from my dad's house.
Okay, so it's your rifle?
Yeah. He bought it with his money, but I got it for him. And the deal was, it's to stay at my dad's house, and you only take it up north with us hunting. And I guess his mom's supposed to get a FOID card here, so it can be put in her name.
Okay.
But he got it from my dad's house in Kenosha.
Okay.
It was never given to him.
So did he pick it up today from your house? From your dad's house?
Yeah, I think so. I think he grabbed it before we left.
Okay. And you knew he had it?
Yeah, I don't know why the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, he's not 18. I don't know why I'm thinking the whole time.
I'm not looking, I mean,
Yeah, the
bigger fish to fry, that's not the thing I'm looking at you for, so.
Yeah, I know, but like in my head, like I could have stopped it. But I know if I would have told him no, he would have threw a fit.
Well, Eric, and we called up that clip to underscore your point you just made about how they had the admission. They had the admission on tape, so no need to wheel and deal. Tell me, if they were intent on dealing, do you think what would have been better than completely dismissing this case, asking the court to dismiss it, getting rid of the felonies, and going to something that is like a traffic ticket, that they could have gone somewhere in the middle with maybe a misdemeanor offense so that this guy isn't a felon, he can become gainfully employed throughout his life? Do you think that would have been a more just result here?
Probably, and that's, I think, something that's being lost here, that there is a level between felony and non-criminal, basically a citation, and that's misdemeanor. So I'm sure there was a misdemeanor charge that could have been charged with here that would have led to at least one criminal conviction in this entire case. And watching that clip back, you're reminded there's a reason you're not allowed to buy a gun for a minor. Right. And this is the reason, because a minor shouldn't have a gun, because look at the consequences of what happened when Kyle Rittenhouse was able to possess that gun. People died, right? So there is a reason. This isn't buying alcohol for a minor or someone under 21. This is buying a deadly, dangerous weapon for someone who is under the age to legally, possess that weapon, or should be under the age of legally possess that weapon. So, there's a reason this law exists, and the fact that there's just no criminal conviction for it is really, really shocking to me.
Right. Let's talk about something else, please, Eric. I want your best educated guess on this. We know there were no federal charges for Dominick Black, when arguably there could have been. We know you can't be a straw purchaser under state law and federal law. And I also know the ATF has a lot of broad discretion in their cases. The Supreme Court has ruled, very broadly. There's a lot of discretion here. When you go to buy a gun, you can't lie on that federal form. You can't say that it's for you when it's, in fact, for someone else. Do you think the reason they didn't pursue anything with him could be, I know the federal government isn't really going to go after low-hanging fruit, so to speak. They're going to go after bigger cases. There's a lot more to be dealt with. But here also, maybe because he was lined up as a state witness in this very high-profile state case, do you think that could have had something to do with it? I'm curious to get your take, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's all speculation, all right? We don't really know what went into this decision because, based on all objective facts, it seemed like this would have been an easy prosecution. We had the admission on tape, and his testimony really wasn't that important in the trial. So we're sort of speculating here. My best guess, and again, just pure speculation, is that perhaps they thought, listen, Kyle Rittenhouse is not convicted. He wasn't convicted. There was no murder here. It was an acquittal. So why are we gonna get a conviction for someone else who was a more distant part of the killing? Maybe that's what they're saying. That's not just for Kyle Rittenhouse to walk away while the guy who bought him the gun has to have some sort of conviction. But again, that's just a guess. Because looking at objective standards, it doesn't really make sense why there wasn't at least a more robust prosecution here.
That's a really good, educated guess. You're right, because we know in criminal cases, you've done it, I've done it, Eric, you're going to go after the person you feel, is the major perpetrator of the crime. And if other people who might be an accomplice or a witness can help further that end goal, then you do it. And here we know he walked away a free man. We know what the jury found and what the facts were. And so perhaps that is why we haven't seen it go any further for someone else who did something far less serious.